How's it going, everyone? Jeff Johnson live from his couch in Northeast Cedar Rapids, here with Jeff Linder, live from his kitchen, dining room.
From Deer Ridge Drive.
In his Northeast side house. So we're here for an edition of the Prep Huddle podcast. 2 weeks to go, believe it or not, folks, in the regular season for the smaller classes. 3 weeks to go for the bigger classes. If you're not aware, your smaller classes, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, your top 4 teams in each district get in. No questions asked. Obviously, there's going to be some tiebreakers that are going to come into effect. And then they'll sort it out that way as far as who's 1 through 4 in each district, and that'll be used to determine pairings for playoffs. And then in the larger classes, you've got top 2, I believe, in the districts get in, and then some. Yeah, and then some at-large with using the Iowa High School Athletic Association's RPI system, and then in 5A it's all RPI. So these are, if you want to get in, you better win games here in the last couple of weeks, 3 weeks, I guess, basically is what we're saying. And then again, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but if you do not make the playoffs in the smaller classes, you can still get a 9th regular season game in by scheduling another team that didn't make the playoffs, correct?
That's correct. One little amendment to what you said: 8 players, there's 10 districts. 3 teams get in from each district automatically. And the last 2 teams are, I think it's at plus or minus 17 tiebreakers.
Okay.
Yeah, the 8-player teams.
All right. Well, we're talking about the RPI, so why don't we kind of mix up a little bit of the order here and maybe talk a little bit about the RPI that was released by the Iowa High School Athletic Association earlier this week. And again, I mean, this is going to fluctuate, correct, Jeff? You're not here in the last 2-3 weeks as what your number is now. I mean, you still have an opportunity to go high or unfortunately maybe go low, right?
Yeah, actually, I've been calculating it myself since week 1, and it's what I've got is really close to what the association has. So I think we got a pretty good handle on it. The one thing we do know is what teams are going to be sitting well, as opposed to other teams based on their strength of schedule. Teams in Central Iowa, the Dowlings, the Ankeny schools, those schools are going to have really high second and third factors, whether that's the opponent records or the opponent's records. So that's gonna lift all ships up in Central Iowa, as opposed to more so around here. Prairie's gonna have a good tie break record. Kennedy is not. Pleasant Valley is not. Davenport West definitely is not. Cedar Falls, not really. Guy's sitting pretty well. Iowa City West, not so much. Limar, if it's gets into a tie break with its record, will be sitting pretty well. So, as far as let's throw Davenport West out. Davenport West won't get in at 6-3. Might not get in at 7-2. Linmar, on the other hand, might get in at 5-4. Definitely would get in at 6-3. So that's kind of what the trends we're starting to see now.
And again, as Jeff said, Davenport West wise, it just simply comes down to strength of schedule. And I'm not going to sit here and say one negative word about the job that Brandon Cruzy's done with that program, which has struggled for a long time, quite frankly. For them to be 6-0 playing whoever they're playing, what an amazing accomplishment. And it's great, I think, for Davenport public school football, quite frankly, which in general has struggled over these, quite a few years. So what a great job. But by the Falcons, but they have, when you look at, as Jeff said, opponents' records, right now it's 17-37, which is the lowest winning percentage of any school in 5A, which means that, as Jeff said, there's no margin for error here for West, and they're sitting sixth right now in the RPI. And that, you might not think that makes any sense, but opponents' records is really the big time thing here when it comes to conducting the RPI. And that's kind of why you see Dowling's your top ranked team in 5A. Despite a loss, Pleasant Valley, which doesn't have a loss, is your number 2. Is it correct?
Yeah, Dowling's opponents win percentage is 32-22. PV is 22-32, and that more than makes up for the differences between 6-0 and 5-1. The third factor between opponents' percentage is basically identical between the two, so that doesn't make a lot of difference. But they're both going to be really high seeds. For PV to be the 1 seed overall, they're going to have to win out, and Dowling's going to have to lose one more, and Ankeny might need to lose one more as well.
Let's look at 4A, where it's a little bit different. As we said, where you have district winners and runners up that automatically qualify. Excuse me, and then the remaining spots are determined by RPI. Cedar Rapids Xavier has your number, or your top RPI right now overall in the state, with Waverly, Shell Rock, Council Bluffs, Lewis Central right there at 2 and 3. And then you've got a couple of undefeated teams in Fort Madison and Newton at 4-5, who haven't played the schedules that the aforementioned schools have. Jeff, is there an opportunity for like a Fort Madison or a Newton not to get in at all, despite being 4 and 5 right now in the RPI?
Well, yeah, there is, but the difference is the top 2 teams in each district are tied in. They're going to be automatic qualifiers. So if Newton would beat Wash this week and then lose out, let's say, I think they're still going to get in at 7-2. I don't think they would get in at 6-3. They're still sitting 5th, which is great. But you've got some 5-1 teams like Liberty, Indianola. Some of those schools are kind of nipping at their heels there a little bit, and they'll probably overtake Newton, even if Newton wins out. So right now, the 12, if the playoffs were today, the 12 automatic bids would be Spencer and Webster City, Waverly and Western Dubuque, Fort Madison and Liberty, Xavier, Newton, Indianola, Carlisle, Lewis Central, and Glenwood, and then the 4 at large is Devon, Red Farrar, North Scott, Mason City,
Now, here's one question for you, which I guess is kind of self-explanatory when I explain it here. In the RPI, we've got Clear Creek and Amana at 19, Cedar Rapids, Washington at 20. They have identical records at 3 and 3. Washington just beat Clear Creek and Amana at Clear Creek and Amana. The final score was closer than most of the game went. Washington was up 21 points in the second half and made some mistakes and kind of had to hang on. So I guess from my end of it, Jeff, head-to-head means absolutely nothing. Correct?
That's not true. No, that's not true.
Okay.
If teams are next to each other, like Clear Creek and Washington are at 19 and 20, and the bottom team beat the top team in that 2 scenario, they flip. So let's say Clear Creek and Wash are the last 2 teams looking for an at-large berth. Mm-hmm. Say Clear Creek is 15 and Wash is 6, or Clear Creek is 16, Wash is 17. It looks like that's the way. If that's the way they're sitting, then Wash would actually flip and take that spot from Clear Creek and Amana.
That's a way I like the way that works. I guess. I mean,
yeah.
A little bit of common sense.
They must be adjacent to each other in the standings. So okay. If they're 2 spots apart, then that
We look at Class 3A real quick in the RPI, and again, Jeff's been on top of this all season long. He knows the formula and has been completely accurate with the numbers before they were officially released. We've got this week Humboldt's your number one ranked team in 3A RPI wise. Then it's Adel DeSoto. Minburn, Nevada is 3 ahead of Mount Vernon, which is 4. And that's despite Mount Vernon being undefeated, Nevada having lost a game. Then it's Harlan at 5, which I think everybody has ranked number 1. Again, a loss in the first game of the season to Council Bluffs Lewis Central. Creston Independent, North Polk and Algona, and Solon come in as the rest of your top 10. Anything in the 3A RPI that stands out to you at all, Jeff?
Not really. Like I said earlier, it's going to sort itself out. Some of these teams are, up top are still going to, win or lose. Harlan plays ADM this week. So that's probably, if Harlan would win that, they're going to jump up a little bit. That might get Harlan past Mount Vernon. They probably would leapfrog Mount Vernon as well. So again, we'll just kind of go through that. If the playoffs were today, your qualifiers would be MOC and Carroll in District 1, Humboldt, Nevada in 2, Independence, West Delaware 3, Mount Vernon, Beth in 4, Solon, Fairfield in 5, ADM, Harlan in 6, with the others teams be Creston, North Polk, Algona. So that means that District 2 would have 4 qualifiers, and Central DeWitt. There's a lot of games left to be played. Like that Independence West Delaware district. West Delaware plays Hampton Dumont, who's 15 this week, and then West Delaware hosts Independence next week. So there's still a lot, and I think that's kind of the case in these districts. There's still a lot of balls to drop.
Looking at last week's schedule, or last week's results, we kind of talked amongst ourselves that it really wasn't the marquee week as far as individual matchups, and that kind of played out, true with the final scores. The one, big game, I guess you could say that we were all kind of curious about, or one of the ones was Durant and West Branch, and West Branch just did a number on Durant in that battle of unbeaten's 49-13. Jeff, 27-0 lead at halftime. For the Bears, legit team, no question about that. Held Nolan DeLong, Durant's outstanding running back, to 101 yards on 21 carries. So a little bit of a surprise to you, I guess, as far as the spread in that game.
Yeah, I thought with DeLong that Durant would be able to, to put together some drives, sustain some drives, maybe get some explosive plays out of that, and it would be a lot closer than that. But the more the season goes, the better I'm starting to think that West Branch might be. I'm going to be down there next week or on Friday when they host Regina. I'll get a good up close and personal look at the Bears, and we'll see how good they really are. I'm afraid that this is a very, very good team that probably is going to be in the Unidome here in a few weeks.
Other games of note, Cedar Rapids Kennedy was upended by Cedar Falls up in the Dome last week, 23-16. I think Cedar Falls got out to a pretty big lead there at halftime and ended up with the win there. Boy, can you figure out the Tigers, Jeff? I mean, they've had some really notable wins and maybe a loss or two. That was a surprise, but this is a big victory for Cedar Falls.
Sure it is. And if you're Kennedy, you're not going to win that game. You're not going to beat them 5 times.
Yep.
That probably led to some short fields for Cedar Falls. Takes away 5 scoring opportunities in a game where, high school game, 12-minute quarters. And against a team like Cedar Falls, they're gonna, they'll hog some clock as well. So there probably just weren't many opportunities for Kennedy to score.
We also kind of talked amongst ourselves last week about Jefferson maybe having an opportunity to beat Ottumwa last week, and you were out there, and it turned out not to be that way. It was Ottumwa easily 54-6. Tell us a little bit about what you saw. Maybe Jefferson had a couple of pretty good drives to start the game, and then everything just kind of went south for the Jayhawks, right?
Yeah, They had a really nice drive to start the game, get a field goal, and before that, they held Ottumwa on fourth down. So they hold Ottumwa, they get a field goal, and then they kick off, and then the next play is a 60-yard quarterback keep for a touchdown. Okay, 7-3. Washington drives down again, gets another field goal, longer one at 7-6. You think, well, yeah, they weathered the storm. We'll see what happens. Ottumwa runs the same play that they scored the first touchdown on, identical result. 64-yard touchdown, quarterback keeper. So now it's 14-6. And Jefferson just didn't respond after that. Ottumwa's got some speed. They've got some backs. They ran for 400 and some yards. I think they had 540 odd yards of total offense, and the rub was on.
I was out at as I mentioned a little earlier. I went down to Tiffin, what turned out to be a really interesting game. Cedar Rapids, Washington hung on to beat Clear Creek Man at 27-24. Pretty significant there, just because of the district thing in the playoffs. Jeff, just we're all kind of assuming that Xavier's going to be your top. It's going to be your district winner, so that leaves your runner-up, which is very much in the air. Big game for Washington this week at Newton, which we discussed a little earlier. Newton being undefeated, so if Washington could somehow win that game Friday night, it's looking pretty good, quite frankly, when you look at the remaining part of the schedule for the Warriors with Oskaloosa, which I think has one win, and Pella, which is very surprisingly winless. So, but Washington looked good, getting out to a 21-0 lead, and Clear Creek Amana lost its starting quarterback to an injury in the game, and they had to bring in a sophomore. And boy, I tell you, the game just kind of flipped, and it was really weird. There were so many weird things: interceptions, safeties, penalties galore, personal foul penalties, up the wazoo there from both teams. But Washington hung on for the 27-24 win, which was significant for it, ended the 3-game losing streak, and kind of set itself up if it can take care of business. Like I said, Friday night looking pretty good for that second spot in the district. So
it might be make or break for Wash this week. If they win, I think they're sitting really, really good, and if they lose, then probably going to need some help, because they'll be sitting 3-4 overall, and that they'll be sitting outside the top 20 in the RPI, and it'll be difficult if they get beat this week.
I'm trying to think. Washington went 5-4 last year and got in. Is that, if I remember?
4-5? I can look that up real quick.
It was a loss to Clear Creek to go 3-4. Yeah, and
I
lost.
Think they were in a 3-way tie for second in that.
Okay.
And I think it was the deal where, was it Newton and Wash got in, or Clear Creek and Wash got in, and Pella was out?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, that is correct, because it was a very, very even district, kind of like it is this year. I think as it's going to come out that way. So, other games of note, man, Mount Vernon. I'm starting to think Mount Vernon's big time legit, Jeff. 42-17 win at Davenport Assumption, 28-7 lead at halftime for the Mustangs. And, junior quarterback Joey Romberg keeps throwing it around, 252 yards and 3 touchdowns. Henry Ryan rushed for over 100 yards. Evan Brazzi had over 100 yards in receiving. You go down there and you beat Assumption, even though Assumption now is only 2-4. I mean, that's a pretty big statement to me. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Assumption's a very, very good 2-4. And for Mount Vernon to go over there and win, I thought they would have their hands full. I thought they might even go down there and get beat. To go down and win by 25 points speaks very well of what Mount Vernon might be. Mount Vernon's going to run the table. There's no doubt about that. They got Makokata this week. Then they go to DeWitt Central, Vinton Shellsburg. They're going to be 9-0 and should have a pretty nice pretty nice path to making the Uni Dome. Although, who knows? Maybe they'll be playing Solon in the quarters.
What a great moment. Just as an aside here real quick, Sunday Night Football featured a matchup of a couple of former Mount Vernon classmates, and Jack Cochran, who plays for the Kansas City Chiefs as a linebacker, and of course Tristan Wirfs, the all-pro offensive tackle for the Tampa Bay Bucks. And a really cool thing on Twitter that Tristan posted, just they exchanged their jerseys after the game and smiled for a really nice photo. And for a smaller community like Mount Vernon, to have two guys make the NFL is amazing. And then for them to kind of go head to head, that was really very cool, I thought.
That's a big deal. And kudos to both of those guys. Wirfs was kind of the 5-star guy that everybody anticipated was going to be in the NFL at some point. Jack Cochran, not as much. I mean, he took more of a back roads route to getting there, and good for him.
Absolutely. One other score of note, here come the walk-on Indians, Jeff Linder. They're looking pretty good. All of a sudden, 28-6 win at Dubuque Wahlert at the Rock Bowl last week. Walk-on started out surprisingly 0-3, and all of a sudden, 3 big wins later, including one over, North Fayette Valley that kind of started this run, and now this one over Wahlert. It looks like walk-on has turned it around and gotten right back to where walk-on always gets, right?
Yeah. They're this year's Williamsburg, and I was really surprised that they went over to Wahlert and won. Wallert's had a really good season. Walk-on started with losses against Waverly and Decorah and Crestwood, but they've rattled off 3 in a row, and they got Jessup and Union to finish the regular season. They should run the table there and get to 5-0 in their district, and who knows what they're capable of doing once they get into the postseason.
I had to chuckle a little bit internally and talking to Coach Chad Bierman Saturday morning just about things, and he admitted, he goes, I was stunned. I was shocked that we were 0-3, because they're not used to it. I mean, they've been in the semifinals. Walk-on has, every year since 2017, they've been in the playoff semifinals. So, but, they found a way to turn it around, and that's, obviously playing their best. It's best football here down the stretch. So, any other game that kind of, hit you, Jeff, at all from last Friday?
Boy, I can't think of anything offhand. I think after that, pretty much everything was pretty much chalk, that without a whole lot of surprises. But it's on to week 7, and it's time to get out our winter coats, it looks like.
Yeah, enjoy this. We're taping this on Wednesday, so hope you enjoy this last apparent warm day, because it's gonna be football weather. It's gonna be chilly weather, right, Jeff? You love
That's right. That's right. I've already made 2 batches of it this year. So
all right.
Yeah.
All right. Off the top, looking at this week's schedule, big one to me is down at Batesfield, Iowa City High and Pleasant Valley. City High's kind of creep right back up into the top 10. I think we had them at 7 this week, if I remember correctly.
6 or 7. Yeah, there's 7.
Pleasant Valley is in there at 3, I believe, for us. Undefeated team. What are your thoughts, I guess, just on this matchup? I don't think there's any question City High's got a legit shot to win this game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. City High is really explosive. They've got a really good aerial attack led by and they're going to be going up against a really good defense. Pleasant Valley's giving up 8 points a game, which is best in Class 5A. And Pleasant Valley also has a rushing attack that, at 300 yards a game, that might be able to help keep City High's offense off the field. So, how much can Larson and Keely Maddox do against PV's defense? I think that a lot. That will go a long ways to determining on who wins the game.
At Kingston Stadium, we've got a real interesting and real big game. Davenport West plays Cedar Rapids Kennedy, and we talked about West and the kind of Cinderella story that it's putting together, and we talked about Kennedy coming off the loss and all the turnovers last Friday night against Cedar Falls. I think this will show, to me anyway, Jeff. This will show exactly. I don't want to say how good, but maybe that is the case that West really is playing a Kennedy team that's going to be a little PO'd coming off of a subpar performance.
Yeah, we're gonna find out a lot about Davenport West this week. If they can come in to Kingston and not even necessarily win, but if they can come and be competitive, then yeah, that's a good team. I think we learned that they're pretty good last week when they beat, I would say, an average to above average Dubuque senior team, 28-10. So if they can hang with Kennedy, hey, they're pretty legit.
I look at, one of the 4 downs we did this week was, what's the district that, and what class is that you're really kind of most intrigued by? I'm kind of paraphrasing here. And to me, it's the district in Class 1A, but where I think there's 5 teams that are all, fairly equal teams. Waterloo, Columbus, Cascade, Sumner, Fredericksburg, Dyersville, Beckman, and MFL Marmac. 5 pretty good teams, I think, too, Jeff.
Yeah.
And we have no idea how this is going to shake out 1 through 4. And we do know for sure that one of those good teams isn't even going to make the playoffs. So with that in mind, you got Beckman against Sumner Fredericksburg, and all of a sudden, we had Beckman ranked number 1 at one point, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Beckman is in, pretty needs to win just to make the playoffs. Who would have thought, right?
Yeah, that's a big win for them, or big game for them, and exactly. NFL's playing really good football right now. And I know one of those wins is a forfeit win from Osage. They lost on the field, but they've got this Wyatt Powell, who's at 618 yards. He's averaging 11 per carry. Their game against Cascade this week is huge, and Cascade's got a good rusher in Jack Minster, who's almost got 1,000 yards this year. So that's a huge game. You mentioned Beckman and Sumner Fredericksburg. That might be an elimination game. Waterloo Columbus is in the mix. You talked about which district is the best. I would say two of the 1A districts in our area, the one you mentioned, and then the one down south with West Branch and Regina and Mediapolis, Durant, Wilton. That's a good district as well.
Yeah, somebody's going to be the odd team out, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think the more we go, it looks like that 15th is probably going to be Wilton.
Okay, all right. Kind of looking, scrolling up and down. You said you're going to be at West Branch on Friday night, correct?
Yep.
I know that KJ Pilcher, our cohort, is going to be at Kingston Stadium for that game. I'm going to be at Bates Field for City High and Pleasant Valley. Other games kind of note looking around here, Xavier and Clear Creek, Amana, as Xavier continues to roll. Assumption and Benton Community, man, Assumption's schedule's just been brutal tough this season.
Yeah.
Holy cow. DeWitt Central Vinton Sheldsbury hasn't been playing too bad of football. Those 2 teams meet. So one thing I wanted to ask you, Jeff, is which class do you think is the deepest, the toughest, the strongest so far from what we've seen? Maybe 10 teams or even just 5 teams, 6 teams, whatever, that have a legit chance to win a state championship. What do you think is the strongest, deepest class out there right now?
Can I pick 2?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I like 4A a lot, and I like 1A a lot. 4A, you've got Lewis Central, you got Xavier, you've got Waverly. You've got those suburban Central Iowa teams. You've got your Carlisle, Indianola, Bonner, Farrar, Norwalk, So I think that's a really deep class. 1A has had, kind of around of number one teams. You've got West Sioux, you got Van Meter, West Branch is looking like a wrecking crew. Dyke New Hartford and AP, Underwood. Pella Christian, we liked Beckman a lot earlier in the year. I would say 1A and 4A to me are probably the deepest classes. What sayeth you?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I like maybe 1A just a smidge more. I just look up and down there and Van Meter obviously is going to be a title contender. You see, Underwood's just destroyed everybody. We know West Branch is legit. Carroll Kemper's sitting there at 6-0 and hardly anybody's talking about it. And the Knights have destroyed everybody. Dyke New Hartford beat Appleton Parkersburg last week, gave AP its first loss. I mean, you just go up and down the list here. Pella Christian, which took a loss unexpected, a couple of weeks ago to Sigourney Kyoto. That's a legit team. West Sioux only has one loss, and that's to a bigger school. So and then we talked about the great district. We're talking about how Dyersville Beckman might not even make the playoffs. So I agree with you. 1A and 4A to me are the strongest. If you had to nudge me one direction or the other, I might say 1A is just a tick.
And you go even past the top 10 in 1A. Western Christian.
Yeah.
They're 4-2. They're good. They're really good. Nobody's talking about Regina. They're 4-2.
Yeah.
Who's to say they can't get hot in the playoffs and make a run? Sigourney Kyoto beat Pella Christian a few weeks ago. So even after the top 10, that's a really, really good class. And I think you're right. I think 1A is probably the best and the deepest, but 4A is pretty good too.
Should we do the survivor pool thing real quick?
Yeah. This is our week that we're kind of wedged into picking a certain class because this is week 7 and there's 7 classes. Nathan went with Mount Vernon over Macokota. I'm going to go Midland over Lansing Key. I mean, that's not a slam dunk, but I'm going to go with it anyway. Midland's playing pretty well. Key's not bad, but this might be the week I get knocked out. And who you got this week, JJ?
I can't remember what I told you. Alburnett over Wapello.
Right.
The Pirates I love looking at stats. I know you do too. We're stats nerds, but Mason Neighbor at Alburnett, those last 2 games I believe it is completed 17 of 20 passes for 9 touchdowns.
Wow.
It's his last 2 games. So I'm gonna ride that Neighbor train. Woo-hoo.
All right.
And there are 4 neighbors on the Alburnett team, by the way. Like a good neighbor, Alburnett is there. So there you go.
That's a neighborhood.
The neighborhood. Yep.
And Alburnett, you talk about teams that have kind of jumped up out of nowhere. I think we have to talk about Unity down at Columbus Junction, the program that's been way down for a while, and they're 6-0, and they play Alburnett next week, and that's going to be one of the big games in week 8.
And Columbus has just put the hammer down on teams too. If you look at the scores, I mean, it hasn't really had a close game at all. 39-19 has been his closest win, and that was over Wapello. Pounded Lisbon 49-20. 55-14, 55-0, 49-20, 63-28. Put up 71 last week, 71-14 over North Mahaska. So yeah, it's good to see, programs like that have been kind of down, finally rebound. And, we talked about Davenport West. Des Moines North is sitting there with 4 wins and lost a close game last week to Des Moines Roosevelt. We all know how many struggles North's had over the years in football. So yeah, maybe things are maybe evening out a little bit, with schools a little bit more able to to schedule, make some especially non-district games, I guess, that are winnable moving forward. So anything else you want to talk about before we sign off here, Jeffrey?
Oh, we had one other thing we wanted to talk about. I think we've pretty much handled everything. Like you said, you talked about where everybody's going to be this week. So I think we're probably kind of coming to an end.
We will 2 more weeks for the small schools in the regular season, 3 for the big schools. Playoffs will be here before you know it. At the Gazette.com, we've got pretty much everything. We got a live running scoreboard every week on Friday nights. We've got feature stories, RPIs, you name it. That's a place to go for all your information from our area here, Eastern Iowa, basically. So for another edition of the Prep Huddle podcast, that's Jeff Linder. I'm Jeff Johnson. I'm going to let you do the KJ thing here, Jeff, to take us out. Thanks for joining us. See you next week.
All right. Yeah, keep that head on a swivel.